all those eye emojis and Brian Windhorst memes after the Texans did those restructures, now we know why they did it. Stefon Diggs is a Houston Texan. That news broke seconds before the John and Lance show ended. And if you want to talk about it, we're here for you. 713-780-3776. Stefon Diggs, a Houston Texan. This is coming off a somewhat viral tweet where a random person talks about the Stefon Diggs not being essential to Josh Allen's success. And Stefon Diggs responded with, "You sure?" And now he's our receiver. He's CJ Stroud's receiver. You've got Nico Collins, Stefon Diggs, Tank Dell, and Dalton Schultz, and Joe Mixon. So Joe Mixon's for different reasons, but the Texans have now acquired a couple guys in the last month and a half or so who you would never think would fit the Texans profile. Things have changed, and it means you've acquired a number one wide receiver, although the Bills had kind of minimized his role over the back half of the year, particularly after Joe Brady took over for Ken Dorsey. But he is still looked at as a number one, and you team him up with Tank and Nico, and it means the Texans are all in. And we know what it means when you have a rookie quarterback, particularly one of C.J. Stroud's caliber. You try to take advantage of it for as many years as you can because at some point C.J. Stroud will be cost prohibitive. He is not that right now. The window to pay Stefon Diggs, and that's the other thing, by the way, that's a guy looking for a new deal. You don't trade for him, and particularly when the compensation appears to be a 2025 second-round pick, you don't trade for that guy considering his personality type and what it means to have an unhappy receiver without paying him. So Stefon Diggs is a Texan and just an organization who continues to do things that I would say goes against what they've been for the last 22 plus years. And why not? It hasn't led to anything other than a couple of divisional round appearances. So why not change the way you operate? So one of the premier wide receivers in the league is now a Houston Texan. Sean, you were out there when the news broke. In fact, you brought it to me, and I jumped in as we were closing out the John and Lance show, and you told me you had to check because was it because of the surprise or just because Adam Schefter fake accounts are everywhere?
Yeah, mostly, well, a little bit of both actually. It was because I'm always on the lookout, and it is something that would be a fake story because, like you said, this is not your slightly older brother's Texans kind of move. This is not a move that they make with basically any other regime that they've had in the franchise's history. So it was a little bit of like a, whoa, this is surprising. It's what we've talked about it before, all the people that during the offseason will Photoshop different players into Texans jerseys and say, Nick Caserio, come get this man, or some version of that. And so far this offseason, Nick Caserio really hadn't done any of it. Joe Mixon and Danielle Hunter were the two big moves, and even Joe Mixon is a big name, but wasn't cost prohibitive. And so we talked about it earlier with them moving the money around earlier this week. What could it mean? Why could they be doing this? And we thought the more likely scenario, or at least I thought the more likely scenario was that they're just going to re-sign Nico Collins and roll some of this money over, maybe make a move in the secondary. Nope. They traded for Stefon Diggs, not just a top, star wide receiver, but a star wide receiver that also means what we always kind of think goes with a star receiver, which means a little bit of a sideshow element to him as well, like you mentioned with the comments about Josh Allen.
Yeah. Even a guy, he's got his brother who talked about Josh Allen and what Stefon Diggs meant for Josh Allen. So he's not the Devontae Adams, who's an elite wide receiver, but we never really hear much from as far as, I guess, distraction. Stefon Diggs is the epitome of quote unquote diva when we discuss wide receivers. But he's a Texan. We know the Joe Mixon thing surprised people because of his past. The Stefon Diggs fits in a different way as far as a surprise. And the compensation, as Diana Rossini puts out, is a second round pick the Texans will give to the the Bills. I see the Vikings in here, but it'll be the Vikings second round pick.
Yeah.
It's not the Texans second round pick for next year. It'll be the one they acquired when they traded down, and they also are getting back a fifth rounder and a sixth rounder next year. So does that speak to the value of Stefon Diggs, where it can't even be a straight swap of a second rounder for him? The Texans have found a way to get picks back and get Stefon Diggs. He's 30 years old. He'll be 31 in November, and the Texans are going to have to pay him. What are we thinking, Sean? Will he get a deal along the lines of Mixon as far as length, not the money? He'll get more than Mixon to make this deal happen, you would imagine. But do you think he's getting a 3-year extension? How long do we think Stefon Diggs is getting on that contract?
Yeah, probably it gets reported as a 3-year extension, but really it's more of a 2-year extension.
And the guaranteed money will be the deal.
Yeah, the guaranteed money will be of course heavy for 2024 and probably 25 as well. After that, I'd imagine that's when it gets a little bit lighter, because like you said, Stefon Diggs is his age does kind of come into, not question, but comes into play a little bit once you start talking about him being on the 2026 and 2027 Houston Texans.
And you mentioned the name Nico Collins. Beyond the fact that he's going to be a weapon for C.J. Stroud, does this mean the Texans aren't going to sign him? What does it mean for Nico Collins that they're going to bring in a true number one and a guy who they're going to have to pay like a number one? And can they keep both on the roster long term? And long term for Stefon Diggs is relatively speaking, but the money that we suspected would go to Nico is going to go to Stefon Diggs, we think, and that means now Nico's probably going to play in a prove-it season. And if the prove-it season is a good one, can they bring him? Can they sign him? It's just a lot of things to contemplate very early, because this news broke as one show is ending and this show is beginning. So I haven't got really a lot of time to get my thoughts together on it. But Ryan, I see you. We're going to get to you on the other side. We're going to get to a break here just to get squared away as information continues to come out about the Stefon Diggs trade. We will bring it to you. But Stefon Diggs, a Houston Texan, the receiver for the Bills that changed the trajectory of Josh Allen's career potentially. If you ask Stefon Diggs, he thinks so. He is now C.J. Stroud's number one wide receiver, and you've got a very talented offensive core. When you think about who the proven guys are and your young guys are ascending, the Texans are in.